Friends, welcome to this afternoon session of this meditation workshop. I wanted to mention to you that this workshop and other similar programs are organized by ISHA, Institute for the Study of Human Awareness, a non-profit organization. This institution works purely on voluntary contributions, which we call, in India we wouldn't call it a voluntary contribution, Seva, money Seva. We have money Seva, we have mitti Seva, and we have bhajan Seva. Three kinds of Seva we do in the Dera. We contribute 1/10 of our incomes as money Seva, we contribute 1/10 of our time to serving physically with the body, and we spend 1/10 of our time in meditation. So that is a normal procedure. Here, since this is a voluntary contribution and tax deductible, those who would like to make a contribution can do so. The books are sold on a totally non-profit basis. No profit is made on the books. No profit is made in any activity of this non-profit body, Isha. My work is totally free. Nothing is ever charged for any spiritual service at all. Great Master never charged anything at all in his entire life. In fact, he had two pockets in his big coat, and one was the outer pocket and one was inner pocket. He used to receive a pension for his work with the military engineering service, and the pension money he kept in the inner pocket. There were no banks or something. And the seva which people gave, which he spent for the dera, was in the outer pocket. So he never mixed up the two, and he would maintain the dera, spend money for the buildings and so on, maintenance of the dera out of the outer pocket. And the inner pocket was used for his own personal expenses, including his meals, his utilities and so on. And my outer pocket is there, on the table there. So anybody who would like to make a voluntary contribution or money seva can do so there, and you'll get a receipt for the donation, and that is tax deductible. So you will save both ways. You'll save in your meditation by making a seva, and you'll save on taxes with the IRS. Okay. Now, we did some exercises in the morning to show that the attention has to be controlled, and the location of the attention is the most important thing for meditation. I keep on emphasizing this because after I was initiated, for quite a long time, I made a mistake. I thought that sitting with the eyes closed and looking at the darkness in front was good enough for meditation. I thought that having a nice chair with a good cushion and calling it meditation chair was good enough. I thought putting a nice fluffy pillow or cushion in a corner of my room and calling it my meditation corner and sitting and meditating there and closing my eyes and repeating the words was good enough. It took me some years to find out none of that was good enough. That if we concentrate on improving the chair on which we sit, most of our attention goes to the chair and not to ourselves. If we develop a particular corner to sit in a good plush pillow, the pillow gets the attention. So when we make these external arrangements, it takes our attention away and you do not see much result. So you have to be meditating for a long time and you wonder where those great lights and sounds are which they talk about. Therefore, I had to go back to Great Master to get an understanding of it. And he said that unless you first locate yourself in your imagination, in your head, behind the eyes, you should not even start meditation. That means the place for meditating is not outside. The place for meditating is inside our body. It's inside our head. It is the area right behind the eyes. When we close our eyes and we see outside the darkness, It's the same outside that we see with our eyes open. Closing the eyes does not take us inside. Closing the eyes merely shuts off the view outside. So therefore, it's not good enough just to close the eyes and think you are meditating. Therefore, you have to imagine. Again, we used an exercise in the morning in which you had imaginary flowers, imaginary snacks, imaginary drinks. The idea of that exercise was to show that by imagination, you can create any condition you want. And since the attention goes along with the imagination, therefore, instead of forcing yourself to think inward and roll your eyes back to figure out what the place is behind your eyes, you merely imagine that you are sitting inside the head. Like any imagination, supposing I were to ask you to think that you are sitting on this table. Just imagine you are here. How many of you can imagine that you are sitting on the table? That's exactly it. Was there any strain on your head? Was there any strain on your body? Was there any strain on your eyes? Nothing. It was a pure act of imagination that your attention went to the table and you imagined that you were there. It's in the same way that you imagine that you are inside your head, behind the eyes, with no strain. It's not a physical exercise. It's purely an exercise in imagination to draw your attention there. So if you close your eyes and you feel, you can always feel your body. You can always know where your hands are without your eyes open. You know where the body is. There's a feel of the body. In the feel of the body, you know where the head is, and you imagine you are sitting inside the head. How to confirm it? You feel your ears have now gone on either side. Your eyes are in front of you. The top of the head is top of you. So that again involves imagination. If you can imagine properly that you are in the center of your head with no strain on the eyes, no physical strain of any kind, pure imagination, you are withdrawing your attention to the right place. And that is where you should be in order to do any kind of meditation. Of course, in the initiation that many of you have obtained from masters, some of you have already practiced this, and you know that once you are there are three types of activity that would be called meditation. One is the repetition of words, repetition of a mantra. Whatever the master says, these are holy words or these are words which will concentrate your attention, you repeat those words. The idea of repeating words while you are imagining you are in the center of the head is that your attention goes to the words and not to other thoughts. If you do not repeat words and merely imagine you are in the center of the head, your mind will be thinking of so many other things. And I'll tell you this, if you are not repeating words, the mind will think of things far away from you. Think of your friends far away, think of what you forgot to do, things what you have to do tomorrow. So the mind will be driven away because whatever you will be thinking about in your thoughts will be where your attention will go. So the attention will not stay in the place which you have chosen to meditate, which is the center of the head, behind the eyes. So that is why you repeat these words, and that's the main purpose, physical purpose of the repetition of the words is that you squeeze out the words of thought and you replace them with the words of the mantra, and you concentrate on repeating those words so that your attention gets focused on those words rather than other thoughts. If you repeat the words and you still think of something else, you can go far away. Kabir says, Kabir was one of the very famous Indian mystic. He says, if you have a rosary in your hand and you are moving the beads regularly, if you are repeating the Simran, the repetition with your tongue, and your mind is running away, don't call it Simran at all. It's not any kind of meditation because you are running all over the world with your mind. So that is why when you repeat the words, it is not enough merely to repeat the words, it's more important to hear the words you are repeating. Because it's only when we listen to something our attention gets riveted there. So The best kind of meditation with practice comes when you don't repeat the words at all. You direct your mind to repeat the words and you sit next to it and listen to the words. And that happens over time. It's a little practice that is required. And then you have no problem, because then the mind will start doing what you are supposed to do. You become a listener. The mind is repeating these words in the center of the head. You are listening. Your attention will be gathered very quickly to the center of the head, and from there it will withdraw from the body and you will have astral experiences coming up very quickly. These are very essential things, and we miss on them. I missed many years of practice because I did not understand fully the significance of imagining that you are in the head and listening to the words rather than repeating them. I thought repetition was good enough, but repetition like a parrot means nothing, because the mind thinks in several channels. While you may be repeating the words in one channel, another channel keeps on commenting upon it. Oh, you're going too fast. No, that's too slow. No, when will I finish this? And at the same time, while you're thinking these thoughts, the mind is also repeating the words. That repetition is not good enough. But if you listen intently with those words in your head, then they serve a real purpose of drawing your attention to the center. The second part of meditation, for those who have been initiated, is listening to the sound current. The sound current is automatic and in all of us. Every human being has a sound current inside the head and spreads out in terms of consciousness, awareness throughout the body, and from the body spreads out to the whole world. The sound current is not really a sound. It is consciousness itself. It is the descent of consciousness from our totality, from Sachkhand, stage by stage, creates all the different stages on the way, creates all the levels of consciousness. And eventually, in the human physical frame, it settles down and creates our human experience, spreading out first as an experience of our own body, and then experience of everything that is outside the body. It's the same sound current. So we call it, why do we call it a sound current? Well, it's a creative power. It's a creative power that is running the whole show. It's a creative power that has created the creative power. It's the creative, there is a nice Shabd, a hymn or a verse in Sarbachan poetry, which describes this, that what is Shabd, what is the word, what is the sound? He said the sound created this earth, sound created the sky, sound created this thing, sound created the creator, and sound created the sound. So it goes that far to say it's a creator of all, including itself. So that is the nature of consciousness. The totality of consciousness is represented by the sound. And why should we call such a strong creative power, which in the Bible John describes as the Word? He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. All things were made by Him. Him refers to the Word, not even to God. If you read all those 6 stanzas, 6 paragraphs, you will find that the reference made in the Bible to the Word is almost identical to the verses in the Rig Veda, in the Sanskrit version of the Rig Veda, where it says, in the beginning was the Nad. The Nad was the sound. In the beginning was the original Nad, and the Nad was with the Creator, and the Nad was the Creator. It's almost a translation. So you will notice that all these descriptions of the creative power have been expressed in some language that represents the sound. The reason why they expressed this creative power, even the Creator himself or herself or itself, even the Creator is expressed as a sound, because when we meditate and want to get in touch with our own consciousness, the consciousness manifests itself like a sound. And that's a great advantage to us, that consciousness, which is merely the power of being conscious, which is merely the power of creating and experiencing creation, that power can be heard and it expresses. Supposing consciousness did not become conscious of anything, Supposing there was pure consciousness with nothing to be conscious of, well, it should cease to exist. Because consciousness per se means it's conscious of something. Otherwise, why do you call it consciousness? So the fact that consciousness per se cannot exist, it has to be conscious of something. When it is conscious only of itself, it expresses itself in the form of a sound or a music or resonance, whatever word you use. Very different frequencies of resonance would also be an expression of the same sound. So the essential part of this particular style of meditation, which great master advocated and many mystics have advocated, is called the Surat Shabd yoga, which means the yoga of the attention and the sound. Surat means attention, Shabd means the sound. And that's the yoga of union with the reality, with the totality. So the sound is very important, and when you hear the sound, which comes automatically when you gather your attention behind the eyes, it comes automatically. It's already there. Our attention is scattered outside. Therefore, we are not hearing it. We are hearing outside sounds, we are hearing outside expression of consciousness. We are not hearing what is inside. So that is why when we concentrate our attention behind the eyes, the sound appears. When the sound appears and we listen to the sound, we are listening to ourselves in the lowest form of expression. Therefore, we are listening to the consciousness that we are trying to reach through this meditation. So, by listening to the sound, we are drawn more to ourselves than anything else. So, it is the best way. I had opportunities to examine large number of meditational techniques when I was a teenager, when I was in college, in the university. I ran around looking for all kinds of meditational practices, and I can confess today this is the best that I could find. To be drawn to yourself and make a discovery of yourself by listening to the sound of the self, nothing is better than that. That sound pulls you. It pulls you to itself. It has a power and a resonance that lifts you up from whatever experience you are having and draws you to itself. And once it draws to itself, it opens up all the other inner experiences of different levels of consciousness. So that is why this listening to the sound of your resonance of yourself is a very important part of this meditation, and it comes naturally. Once you get that, and you are able to hold on to that sound, which means that you are not distracted again and again by other things. You need not practice any repetition. You need not practice anything else. No need of practicing imagination. No need of doing anything else except listen to that sound. It will draw you up to the highest levels of the creator and the creation. Every level of consciousness can be experienced through that sound. So it's a very powerful method and a very powerful sound that exists within all of us. It is not placed there by any human being. It's there created along with our consciousness. It's created because we are conscious beings. Therefore the sound exists. It may take some time for us to get to the real sound because we are used to all external stimuli and external sounds, external distractions, I might say, and therefore our attention is not easily drawn to the sound within ourselves. So it takes time. Meanwhile, till that sound of consciousness can be heard, we can hear some other sounds. We hear some other sounds in the head. Many of them are physical sounds. They arise from our physical body. You can, if you are trying to concentrate, you can even hear the sound of your breathing. You can hear the sound of your heart. You can hear later on even the sound of the blood vessels. And they look musical too at some point. Those are not real sounds. They do not have the pull that the sound of consciousness has. But they're good enough for practice. So I call them practice sounds. I call them, even if you get those sounds, hold on to them because they are still inside your head. And it gives you a little practice how to listen to the sound within you. And I have found that if you practice listening to these practice sounds inside your head, you will be able to reach the real sound also, because the attention is still being drawn and maintained in your head and behind the eyes. So that is why even if you hear some other sounds, the other practice sounds which are not purely physical, are sounds which are being generated by your sense perceptions or generated by your astral body. And those sounds can be like the sounds of chirping of birds, like chirping of crickets, by little bells ringing, and by thunder, sound of roaring of water over on a waterfall, those kinds of sounds, sound of a train passing near your house, sound of, you may suddenly feel there's a train passing, there's no railway track outside. How did I hear that? That's part of it, practice sound. When these practice sounds, there are about 10 or 12 of them listed that they may come before you get to the real sound, which can have a pull. The real sound that has a pull is the sound of a bell. It's a big bell sound. It has a up and down, peal of a bell. Dong, dong. That means it has a regular bell, peal. But the sound of that bell is very mellow, it's very soft. It does not have, like I described, it has a kink in it, but that sound has got smoothness about it. That sound can hold you inside and draw you to your center faster than anything else. And sometimes it can be so fast that you don't like it that way. But if you practice slowly, every day, gradually making some progress, you begin to recognize the sound seems to come from a big distance. From a distance and then becomes closer. The sound becomes closer to you because your attention is getting more towards it. If you stay in the center of the head, the sound keeps on becoming louder. If you try to move towards the sound, it becomes weaker. So the sound is therefore not really coming because it's coming from somewhere, it's coming from within you. And you move away from the center, the sound becomes weak. You can immediately know the sound is coming because you are in the center, behind the eyes, in the third eye center, which has been described as the 10th door to open up the door to the astral plane. So this sound of the bell is like a regular bell, big bell, not a small bell. Small bells are still practice sounds. And the big bell has been copied in almost all traditions. We put the belfries up in our churches. We put bells in the temples. We have used similar gongs in so many places of worship. We make artificial sounds like that in almost every house of worship that I have visited. And people think that by listening to those outside sounds, we are getting spiritual upliftment. That is not true. It may be very soothing to the nerves, may be pleasing sound, may be aesthetically very good. It is not a spiritual sound. Spiritual sound comes from within ourselves. These sounds were placed outside, as were the houses of worship created outside, to remind us that the real house of worship is our human body. Our head is the real place of worship. They even copied the design of the head. Many of the old temples, old synagogues, old churches had domes on them. And if you look at a dome, in one of those old places of worship, and there are stupas, Buddhist stupas in India, they all have a regular dome, looks like a bald head. Well, they couldn't put hair on it, but they made a good copy. They did put some hairstyles of those kinds, and they did put some hair dressings of that kind. For example, used to wear long kind of headgear, and they made the steeples and the size of the temples and churches like that. They copied what was originally indicated as our house of worship. We run around to go to a house of worship carrying our real house of worship with us on our head. The real, the Bible says the kingdom of God is within you. And this body is the real temple of God. It's been described in almost all scriptures like that. That if you want to find the truth, go into this temple, not into the outside temples. They are there to guide us. Look for the real temple. Books are there, look for the real thing. We make the same mistake by thinking that by going outside to these places, man-made places, we'll find the truth about the Creator who sits inside us. We think by reading books and descriptions of what is inside us, we will go inside. Nobody goes inside just by reading. That's a guide for us, that if you read this and follow up, you'll find the truth inside. The books themselves say that's all inside us. And therefore, we have to be guided by our own experiences inside the head. This sound of the bell, which has been copied in several places of worship outside, then transforms itself as you listen to it more carefully. The more attention you place on it, the gap between the peal increases. So instead of dong, dong, it becomes dong and becomes elongated. Ultimately, you could hear only one peal stretched out over indefinite time. And that is the stage when the sound doesn't look like a bell at all because it lost its sine curve. It's lost the up and down. And that resembles something like a conch being blown, something of some kind of an instrument that has one long sound. So that is the next sound. And these two sounds in combination give you entry into the astral plane. That's simple. That the system should be so simple that by concentrating your attention behind the eyes, you should be able to have entry into an area where you will see where you will go when you die physically, where you find out where you were before you were born in this body. I think it's a great information to get just by hearing sound, just by sitting inside the head in an imaginary way and then hearing the sound and getting this information and experience of it. So I would like to start this meditation with you by trying to help you to see where the place for meditation is. That's very important. So will you please close your eyes and practice through imagination, sitting behind the eyes. How many of you enjoyed this session? I think it was more successful in the previous two sessions. I am very happy. I am happy you are all doing well on understanding what we are doing. We are merely trying to gather our attention to our own self. We are putting our attention to the point in our head from where it originates, from where consciousness operates and makes everything visible and experienced by us. By doing that, we discover who we are. Gradually, we open up the inner doors and we see that this experience outside is not the only experience that exists. There are many other worlds and universes at higher levels of experience existing within us. And we open them, we open up new worlds around us. We can experience them like we experience this world. So it is all inside us. The entire universe that exists outside is also existing inside us. We project it outside and make it appear outside. We project time, space, everything outside and make it appear like it's really outside. And we live it as if it is really a reality created outside. There are many realities like this that exist within ourselves. By practice, you'll be able to see them. I will take a little break now to give some interviews because I have a long list of interviews. Many of you have asked for personal interviews because the number of people asking for interviews is very large. They have to, by this constraint of time, be limited to a few minutes each. So choose the most important question that you want to ask during that short period of interview. And for longer questions, you can write to me, email to me. Some of you already do it. And I do, when I get time, respond to all the emails that I get. Or you can write letters and I respond to them too. But any urgent thing that you have, you can ask in the personal interview that you will get. The order of interviews will be that those who have come from outside this country, they come a long way, they get the first chance to meet me individually. After dinner break, we'll have another session of meditation here. Thank you very much.